Special good morning to all listeners via Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9. Those of you viewing via GBN TV, whether you're viewing Channel 7, Channel 11, or Channel 20, good morning and welcome to the Mid-Morning Buzz. I'm your host, GT, and I'll be around with you for the next couple of minutes. And this morning, of course, we do have a very special guest with us this morning, and it's all about Grenada UN Day. And we're going to be chit-chatting with, of course, the UN, of course, coordinator Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. I deliberately didn't say his name because I didn't want to get into trouble in terms of the pronunciation. So I will leave it up to him. Let's go over and say good morning, of course. Good morning to you, sir. How are you doing this morning? Welcome.
Good morning, Glenn. No worries. You can go ahead with my name. It's not so difficult. If you say Didier, that's all right.
All right.
I'm very happy to be with you.
I was going to leave it for you to pronounce it for me so I don't get into trouble, because I always seem to get in trouble in terms of pronunciation of names, and I didn't want that trouble this morning.
Sure. Understood.
All right.
Happy to be with you.
All right. So welcome. It's all about Grenada UN Day. Tell us the significance of UN Day. Tell us the significance of it. Let's get into the conversation this morning.
Sure. And again, thank you for the invitation, and good morning, everyone in Grenada. I'm talking from Barbados, where we have our UN hub, but I'm very familiar with the Spice Island. I come very often for all the work we do in Grenada, and tomorrow, actually, on the 24th of October, we're celebrating the 78th anniversary of the United Nations, and that's an important day for the whole world, as well as Grenada, obviously, because that's where we celebrate when the United Nations Charter came into effect in 1945 on the 24th of October. That's basically when the UN was created in the aftermath of the Second World War. Now we have 193 member states in the United Nations worldwide, and as you may know, Grenada became a member of the UN in 1974. And that's an opportunity to celebrate basically what it means the United Nations for each and every country and each and every citizen. So the value of the UN and the value of the UN Charter are really first and foremost about peace and security. And when we see the type of tensions, polarization that the world is experiencing in the current moment, obviously that's more important than ever. Another important value and principle of the UN is protecting human rights for all, so that we leave no one behind. And then finally, I would like to highlight the prosperity and development for all, and that's where we focus here, along with human rights and peace in general, but obviously that's not a region where there is a conflict when we come to the Eastern Caribbean. So that's what we aim to celebrate in the coming day and around the week, and we'll have also several activities in Grenada itself, with a flag raising ceremony with Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the government, along with the various UN staff. I will be myself participating by distance tomorrow morning, and then we'll have other activities, especially to promote the Sustainable Development Goals in partnerships, for example, with FLO and some specific panel. I mentioned, you see, human rights and the need to leave no one behind. So we'll have a special dedication this year in Grenada around the panel about youth and disability, because we believe that it is important to empower youth, the leaders of tomorrow, and put a special emphasis on people living with disability to ensure their inclusion. So I'll stop here for now. If you have
sure.
I have what to say, obviously.
Reform is always a word that we always hear about from time to time. Now let's talk about the evolution of the UN and its reform. Let's hear a bit more about that.
Sure. The UN also is a living organization that has to walk the talk. I mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals. It came into effect in 2015, and that requires both from governments, from civil society, but also the United Nations to work in a more multidisciplinary manner. break the boundaries basically between sectors, between agencies, as far as we are concerned, or in a government between ministries, so that there is more inter-collaboration and cross-sectoral work. So that's what we've been doing for the past 4 years in the development pillar of the UN. We call this the UN Development Systems, so that the various agencies, especially for Grenada, we have 20 agencies of the UN working in the Caribbean at large, and particularly in Grenada, we have, for example, UNDP, FAO, the World Food Programme, UNICEF, PAHO, WHO, UNESCO, UN Women, UNFPA, and several others, working on different areas. You see, on building resilience, adapting to climate change, fighting gender-based violence, making sure that youth have opportunities in life, but also increasing food security and livelihood opportunities for the people. And to do this, we really need to, obviously, as the UN system, to be more integrated. And this is the work we have been doing, making sure, that we deliver on the ground integrated and holistic solutions on those areas that I have mentioned. So the agencies come together to mobilize resources, to work with different partners, with various ministries, making sure that we don't duplicate, that we don't replicate also something that is already being done, but rather we build on what exists, and we ensure that we have no inefficiencies, and most importantly, that we scale up our partnerships. You see, nowadays, if you want to make a difference to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in a country like Grenada, we cannot do micro interventions. We have to think big. We have to scale up. If you want to have an important impact, I would say, that really change the lives of the people, of the men and women, of the girls and boys of Grenada, to make sure that we achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in 2030. And nowadays, those goals, worldwide are lagging behind because of the succession of crises that we've seen, COVID, the impact of the war in Ukraine. Now we see we have a conflict in the Middle East, and all this has repercussions all over the world. So it's important to work more collaboratively, and that's what we've been doing. We have a country coordination officer in Grenada. We have several footprints of several UN agencies working hand in hand. We have joint programs as well, and I may talk a bit about that in a few moments, in order to work better together and be, a very effective partner for the government.
You touched on it a wee bit when you were speaking a while ago. You talked about the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the role of the UN in achieving those Sustainable Development Goals. How do the Sustainable Development Goals help us, especially in regions like Grenada?
Yes, the Sustainable Development Goals, these are 17 goals. It can be a bit complex, but really this is about reducing poverty. This is about ensuring that people have opportunities in life to have decent job, women and girls also that are being treated equally at work, at home, in public domains, that youth are empowered as well, and making sure, for example, that climate action is implemented on the ground so that the countries, the people are resilient to the potential impact of climate change that we see are growing with extreme weather events that we see happening regularly. You see, we almost got a hurricane and tropical storm at the end of October, which is unusual. So we will have more and more of those. And the Sustainable Development Goals really are meant to be adapted to national priorities in Grenada, and that's the type of work we do. So we use this global the global blueprint to support the national priorities in Grenada. I mentioned resilience, so working with the government on building resilient infrastructure, but also making sure that institutions, people are more resilient, are able to adapt to the ongoing and future impact of climate change. We work, for example, with the Spotlight initiatives. I'm sure that many have heard about the Spotlight initiatives funded by the European Union in Grenada, which seeks to reduce domestic violence and especially gender-based violence against women and girls, with several agencies like UNDP, like UN Women, like PAHO, WHO, and UNICEF working together with not only the gender machinery, but also the police, the Attorney General Office, with the judiciary, with the hospitals, and with several other ministries to make sure that we provide opportunities to women and girls who have gone through gender-based violence, but also prevent the risk of facing gender-based violence through campaign, through education, but also working with civil society organizations. So this is the type of work we do in order to land this global agenda and improve lives of the people and empower, the youth, for example, women and girls, and those that at risk of being left behind. And I'm thinking of people living with disability, but also the elderly. The Caribbean is a region where the elder population is growing. We have to make sure that appropriate care is implemented and protection is also offered, because we have seen in many occasions also situations of violence against the elderly. So these are just, in a nutshell, a few of the things we do, and there are many more I can talk about if you're interested in a specific topic in particular.
All right. Well, let's talk about the UN agencies and some of the level of residencies in countries. Tell us about that.
Yes, in Grenada in particular, of course, we have programs that are implemented. And I mentioned in the Caribbean that 20 agencies of the UN that are active. In Grenada, we have specific projects from about a dozen of agencies, and for example the UN Development Program working on citizen security with the Carry Secure, modernizing the digital mechanisms of the police to improve efficiency in terms of managing crime and data. Or UNDP also working, for example, on adaptation for climate change with different institutions. UN Women also has a very strong initiatives with the UN Population Fund, UNFPA, in Grenada, which is called Building Back Equals, in addition to working on gender-based violence that I highlighted. And Building Back Equals seeks to empower economically women and girls to become more autonomous, to have opportunities for their futures while taking care of their sexual and reproductive health. And this is an initiative that is funded by Canada. The UN brings also resources and technical expertise, but we have also a big network of development partners and donor countries that work with us. I'm thinking, for example, about the Caribbean Resident Initiatives that seeks to strengthen social protection systems, precisely to leave no one behind, but also empower youth, offer opportunities for vocational training so that youth, and I know this is a priority of Prime Minister Dick Mitchell, to make sure that young people have future, have hope, have access to vocational training. So that's why we have this initiative funded by the SDG Fund that brings several UN agencies together, like ILO, the International Labour Organization, UNICEF, UNDP, and UNESCO. So these are examples of the agencies that are working in Grenada, and I shouldn't, of course, forget PAHO, WHO, working on strengthening health system and health preparedness system. We have learned a lot of lessons from the impact of COVID-19, not only for access to vaccine or vaccine acceptance, but also how do we prepare for future pandemics, because we might have more in the future. So we don't want pandemics in the future to affect so heavily the social networks, the economy of the various countries that it has had, in addition, of course, to putting a very heavy pressure on the health system. So PAHO working with other UN system agencies on those issues, including, for example, with UNICEF on mental health. And we know that mental health is a very important topic that we want to address more strongly in the Caribbean. We have seen a lot of young people recently who have been impacted and going through, mental health issues. We have to make sure that this is not addressed in the form of a stigma, but considered as any other health issues that needs to be addressed. When I looked at the presentation recently by PAHO about mental health, I realized that the category of the population that is mostly affected by mental health pressures and issues are the young people, between 16 to 25 years old. So we have to put special attention of young people, because we don't want to leave them on the road because there are not enough safety net, there is not enough mechanisms to protect them and to offer them solutions so that they take full advantage of the opportunities.
All right. I mean, it's interesting to know of all the work that the UN is doing, especially here in Grenada. Sometimes it's been really inspiring to hear some of the work that you're doing. Let's just tell about some of the work and the work, the intervention of the UN here in Grenada. Tell us about some of those to be specific, a little bit more specific.
Yes, well, in addition to those that I mentioned, let me come back to the one which is called Resilient Caribbean on social protection and youth empowerment. Because this is important. That's an initiative that brings several UN agencies that I just mentioned, you see, ILO, UNICEF, UNESCO, amongst others. And we need to build resilience. And sometimes we think of resilience like we need to have stronger infrastructure, which is true. We cannot have a school or hospital that is immediately affected, let's say, by a Category 3 hurricane. So we need to have smart schools, we need to have smart and safe hospitals. But at the same time, we also need to build the resilience of the people. And building resilience of the people means that we need to implement shock-responsive social protection mechanisms. And that's what those agencies are doing. I forgot to mention the World Food Programme involved in these initiatives. So strengthening social protection systems, making sure that we're able, ahead of a potential crisis, to target the beneficiaries those that are most fragile in society, will make the state and the community as a whole more responsive, because we'll be able to provide cash transfer or assistance in a situation of crisis, because we'll have identified ahead of time who are those most vulnerable, and we'll have the system in place, digitalized, efficient, modern, to be able to support them. And the other component of this initiative is on youth empowerment. I want really to put a special emphasis on this, because youth empowerment means first giving them the opportunity to have a voice. They're the future leaders. We keep saying this all the time, but we need to make sure that they participate in decision making. We need to make sure that as much as possible we involve them, in policy discussions or decision making. And that's why, as UN system, we have created a youth advisory group to hear from them. And we have, of course, young people from Grenada as well as all other islands, and they tell us, what they feel we should include in our programming. So that's why youth empowerment in this initiative of Resilient Caribbean in Grenada is so important. And we want to give them access to the right, vocational training. Sometimes we see gaps between what the labor market offers or what it could potentially offer as it transforms itself towards digital economy, or, for example, orange economy with orange economy with, I forgot the words now, creative industries. So we need to offer them training, should it be in Grenada or opportunities for educational courses outside Grenada eventually. So some may wish to create their own small businesses. So we need to provide them not only the training, but access to financing as well. A small business might be seen as too risky for the traditional banking commercial system. So we need to find ways for young people to access financing and the minimal capital that will enable them to have some of the required assets to start running the business. Some might fail, but that's how we learn in life, you see. We learn from failure, and then we rebound and do something different. So that's why the importance of working on the one hand on social protection, but also youth empowerment, offering them the opportunity to get access to work, to create a business is so important in our view.
All right. Now, the process of course, for the intervention that you do, there always have to be that process of monitoring. How does the UN get through that monitoring, especially in terms of the work and intervention that they carry out, especially in Grenada and other parts of the world? How is the monitoring done?
Yes. Well, we are under heavy scrutiny as UN system, as you can imagine. So monitoring and evaluation is really part of our DNA. And then I don't want to be too technical, but we have what we call a country implementation plan in Grenada. I signed that with the Prime Minister. The current one covered the period of 2022 and 2023, and we are now discussing the design of the new country implementation plan for Grenada for the next 2 years that brings all the interventions of the various UN agencies cooperating with the government and the people of Grenada. And basically, we agree on some goals, on specific targets. What are we expected to achieve, in 2 years, and what do we plan to deliver? What are the resources we would like to mobilize? What are the resources at our disposal? And this forms the basis for us then to track progress, because we have to be accountable. And that's why we do an annual review with the government, with civil society, the various UN agencies. We also invite donor countries. I mentioned Canada, I mentioned the EU, but there is also the UK, Japan working on Sargassum, for example, with UNDP, and a few others. And we want to be accountable and make sure that all who have a role in those initiatives can also participate in assessing how those programs are doing, so that on a regular basis we adjust. Nothing is written into stone, and that's a bit our approach when there are emerging opportunities that, for example, the country or the government wishes us to be involved in. Then we adjust some of our initiatives. When an initiative is not doing good enough, then we have to adjust and correct and learn from those mistakes. So this is a very iterative process, and we have very stringent tools precisely to make sure that we're accountable as UN system towards the national authorities, but also towards the people, so that they can have clarity on the results that we deliver on the ground in a country like Grenada.
All right. Well, UN, of course, Grenada UN Day tomorrow. You're certainly going to be on island. Certainly hope that you will have an enjoyable stay when you come here. I'm assuming you always do when you visit Grenada. And I certainly want to wish all the best in terms of the process of what's going to be taking place tomorrow. I want to thank you once again. Is it Dider? I hope I'm getting the name right. I didn't want to mention it.
Yeah, almost there.
I want to thank you so much for being on the Mid-Morning Bus this morning and share the information. Certainly do appreciate it. Have yourself a great day, and all the best on your visit to Grenada tomorrow.
Sure, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to
All right. Hey, folks, that's how we take a wrap for today's program. Of course, on the Mid-Morning Buzz here on, of course, Classic Radio GBN TV. We were speaking, of course, to Dider. Of course, I don't want to give the rest of the name. He's the UN, of course, resident coordinator, Barbados, and the rest of the Eastern Caribbean. Once again, thanks for being on the Mid-Morning Buzz. We do have another interview coming up shortly. Stay with us here on Classic Radio GBN TV. All the best.
One day I woke up and they painted a set of pedestrian crossing all along the streets. Nobody told us how to use that thing properly.
I know how.
You're serious?
Every safe, good driver knows about these things. As a driver, you have to be very attentive. You're coming up close to a pedestrian cross, you start slowing down immediately, looking to see if there's any pedestrian on the side getting ready to cross. If there is, you stop on the line that is a certain distance before the crosswalk. Then you would see the pedestrian put their hands out, looking directly at you, indicating that they are going to cross. And only when you have come to a complete stop, that is when they will quickly and safely cross to the other side. And then you continue happily on your journey.
Stop, look, hand out, eye contact, wait for pedestrian to cross. Then you happily continue on your journey.
This message is brought to you by this group of insurance companies, the Traffic Advisory Body, and the Traffic Department.
EC Polymer Notes, our new money.
Here's how you can detect genuine EC polymer notes. Feel. Polymer notes feel smoother than the material from which paper notes are made. Also, the front of each note has raised bumps at the top left-hand corner. These bumps form shapes that are familiar to you. Look. Look for the clear window at the front and back of each note. This window allows you to see through the notes. If you hold the notes up to the light, you'll see the value of the note in an area of plain colored print. Tilt. A holographic foil is on the $100, $50, and $20. The images move and their colors change when you tilt the notes. Remember, detecting genuine EC polymer notes is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Feel, look, and tilt.
EC Polymer Notes, cleaner, safer, stronger.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. It's Classic Radio and GBN TV. Welcome back to another edition of the Mid-Morning Buzz here. With me this morning, I have Mr. Ellis Ogilvie with me this morning. And Mr. Ogilvie is a special education teacher. He served at the St. Andrews School for Special Education from 1995 to 2008, and at the Resource Center for the Blind from 2008 to present. And he's currently serving as the acting principal of the particular center I just mentioned. Let me say good morning to Mr. Ogilvie. Mr. Ogilvie, good morning and welcome to the Mid-Morning Buzz. How are you this morning, sir?
Good morning and thank you. I'm doing quite well.
All right. Well, you're a special. We're talking special education this morning, and it comes all themes up in terms of Child Month 2023. I almost missed the year. Imagine that. Child Month theme. Every child matters. See me, value me, and we're talking special education this morning, and. We want to talk about, especially those the visually impaired individuals. We want to spend some time talking about that. And let's valuing students with special needs. How important is that? How important is valuing students, especially those with that special need?
Well, that's a very interesting question. To start off with, I want to spend a little while talking about the theme, and it would really tie in with how we value children.
Sure.
The theme says, every child matters, see me, value me. And one of the things that we have to pay attention to when we value in somebody is it means that we have to invest in them. And in order for us to value our children, we truly have to invest in them. And when I say invest, we're not just talking about monetary investment, although everything we do can be
that's important to a point.
That can be given a monetary value.
Yes.
But we need to invest time, your energy, etc. And it is very, very important how we value persons, especially persons with special needs. And as the theme says, see me, value me. Sometimes one of the things that I really want to zoom in on is that see me. That see me is not necessarily what you see in
it's not always a visual aspect of it.
Yes, And I think that seeing has to get to do more with knowing, getting to know the person, because it's you can compare it to a painting. Somebody gives you a painting and you look at that and you say, that's $5, that's $10. But you take it to somebody else and they appraise it and it might be worth $1 million. It might be a Picasso,
because they see something different about it than what you see.
So it is important that we learn to really value, take time to find out and get to know, so we can value what we have. And what we have is our children. And sometimes what we have in our children, the talents and the skills that they have, you may not see it initially, but it's so great and so rich that if we take time to nurture it, you'll never know where they would lead us.
Yeah, and it comes across, especially some parents. Some parents don't know the value of the qualities of their child in particular sometimes,
That is true. And the thing too is, as teachers, I think we have to really and truly assist some of our parents, because as you say, some of our parents really don't see the value, they don't know it, And if you look at the amount of contact time we spend with their children as teachers, sometimes it's more than the amount of time that they get to spend with their children, because the hours that they would have after school, most of those hours are spent in with the child sleeping.
Yeah, so true.
So we may have 8 hours, but we have 8 of the prime time hours that you would spend with the children in a day. And so it brings me back to the whole concept that as teachers, when our parents cannot value and advocate and push for our children, it is up to us as teachers to see that value and speak out for them and be the voice for our children.
Let's talk about some of the challenges faced, especially for the blind and visually impaired children with special needs, and that's resulting from discrimination. Some folks may say Grenada, and the word discrimination comes in between there with Grenada. I see you smile at it because it's sometimes something you may not find, you may think is not prevalent around in Grenada when it comes to discrimination, especially with folks with the blind and visually impaired individuals. Tell us about that. Tell us the challenges that are faced.
Interesting. I think oftentimes because maybe we don't have a large blind population, especially among school-age children and so on, that persons tend to, the first impression is that this person can't, full stop. So you can't.
You're visually impaired, you can't do nothing.
You can't do, that's it. You can't. You can't see, so you can't read, you can't write, you can't, And that is the kind of concept, and oftentimes persons tend to feel pity for those persons, But as blind and visually impaired persons, they're persons just like us, and they have feelings. And one of the things I want to say is that not because a person is blind, it does not mean that they are not aware of what is taking place with individuals in terms of persons' emotions. And a lot of the times when you speak, they're able to pick up on certain vibes. They're able to tell the kind of ideas that you have without even verbalizing it to them. And a lot of the times they could tell you when there's a person that doesn't like them, a person that feels that they can't do what they're supposed to do.
That's because of the development of the other senses.
Yes. And oftentimes you find these persons tend to go into depression. They become depressed because it's like, here I am, I'm trying, I want to be able to do this, I want to be able to do stuff, I have my own goals, I have my life to live, but here are persons telling me that I can't do this, I can't do that, or they don't see me as being able to achieve and accomplish as much as my sighted peers can. And I want to say that, especially in this day and age that we are in presently, with the advancement in technology, especially assistive technology, there is so much that blind and visually impaired individuals can accomplish with the use of assistive technology.
Okay, so that's so interesting. Now let's talk about advocating for students with special needs. Tell us about that. Let's go about that.
Quite frankly, I think as parents of persons with special needs, I think we should be the biggest champion of our children. We should be the one to voice our concerns and our needs. When that fails, I think, like I was saying, I think outside of that, it comes to the education system. It comes to our teachers. I think we have a challenge here in Grenada in the sense that we don't really have the kind of support system, especially for parents and so on, that we need to be able to champion that voice, that cause for our persons with special needs. So I think more than anything else, that is where we really need to establish groups or organizations that would really push to champion the needs. I'm not saying that there isn't. I know there are a couple there, but you would only get to hear about them once in a while.
Child bonds, right. The disabled, or whatever happened, then you hear about them.
Yes, but we need to be more vocal. We need to put out more there for our children. So we need to say in terms of have parent support, because I think that is important for our children, where parents can come together and share ideas, and because the whole mantra of Ministry of Education, UN, as was mentioned a while ago, with no child left behind or no one left behind, we have to come together regardless of whether you have, you don't have, you don't know. We have to get everybody on board. We can't be bringing some because you have, and because you don't have, we leave you behind. We have to get everybody on board, because we each have our gifts and talents.
Tell me, you as your personal employee, would of course being the principal of the resource center and so forth. What more would you like to see done, especially for helping individuals with special needs, the visually impaired, or even other folks with disabilities that you are in charge of looking after? What more would you like to see from a societal point of view?
I think as a society we could really try our best to get to know about persons and their conditions. Try and so we're looking at education. Try and get to interact with those persons. And get to understand where they're coming from, because I think sometimes that can be a problem. We have to learn to value those individuals and see them as individuals like us. And in whatever way we can help to support these individuals, we should try and help to support them, be it academically, you name it. We should try and assist them.
You of course also you have been able to have conversation with people with those with of course disabilities of that nature. What are some of the things that they tell you? What are some of the things that they tell you?
That's an interesting question. A very interesting question. It's like you're throwing a curveball. And you're going to realize that everybody is different.
Yes.
Every individual is different. Every individual presents with his own challenges. Some of them may have challenges with being able to travel. Some may have challenges with academics. But generally, some of the things that these persons would have mentioned to me sometimes is like, sometimes they feel that persons or their individuals don't value them. They feel, some of them feel like
they're left out.
They're left out.
You understand?
Persons feel they can't do it. Whereas sometimes when you find persons who would get to know some of them on the other hand, and they realize some of the gifts and skills and talents they have, that they're quote unquote in shock, they're in awe that this person is blind and they're able to do so many things. The question now is, how are you able to do it? All
right.
So
that's one final question. This is something that is just I feel passionate about. Opportunities. What kind of opportunities are there you think could be available more for people, especially with these kind of disabilities?
That's a good question, because I think
sometimes they feel left out, unvalued, and so forth. What kind of opportunities could you think could be presented to them that could just get them more into being part of society as a whole?
Good. So in terms of persons' achievements, like I say, every individual is different. Okay, and I think oftentimes we could try and find some niche for those individuals. You would find maybe some of our persons with special needs, maybe finishing, be it a special school or a secondary school or wherever the case might be, and they may have gone to New Low or whatever the case might be. And what you're going to find happening is that they finish and they're back home.
Yeah.
You know, but one of the things we can do, and I'm always saying that the whole goal is about independence. We want these young people to be productive. We want them to be independent at the end of the day. And so we as maybe corporate community, as persons owning businesses and so on, we need to be able to find a way to provide a niche market for them, an area where they can employ their skills, their talents. You know, they could find a job, they could hold their own at the end of the day. Because owing to that, they become a burden to society.
Yeah.
And that is something that we really don't want. So in terms of being able to find opportunities, job opportunities, maybe sometimes even training opportunities, if those can be available for our young persons. Also, for those who are academically inclined, maybe if we can have maybe scholarships available or further learning opportunities available for them so that they can become as independent as possible.
Because sometimes they do possess particular skills that could get them into society with ease.
Yes.
You know. So, Givy, I want to thank you so much for being on the program this morning and sharing information that you did. I know there are individuals out there who are listening and viewing are feeling the same way you do and understanding, of course, the what they have to go through, especially a parent who may have a son or a daughter who may be visually impaired. And there are individuals out there who may have gotten to an adult stage in life also now, and they know what it's like for they've been through when they were younger to the way the stage they've gotten now. So thank you once again, and all the best.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Have a good one, sir. All right, folks, that's what we wrap today's program on the Mid-Morning Buzz. Certainly thank all who viewed and listened. Have yourself a great day. That's why I say goodbye.